Good morning, all, and happy Friday. Welcome to this edition of Balance in Life. I'm Crystal Tyler Mackey, happy to welcome you on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension, our Human Development Program team, and our partners in this series, North Carolina Cooperative Extension. I am looking forward to the session today. I feel like I know it's the unofficial start of summer, but it feels hot on some days, and we can get outside with sun and warmer weather and do some different things. So what better time than now to start thinking about how we can take advantage of those things, how they benefit us, and how we can do so safely. So I am happy to reintroduce many of you to and introduce you to some of our colleagues. Adam Downing, who was on with us before about a year or so ago, talking about the things that we could do outdoors and connecting with nature, and welcoming for the first time on this side of Balance in Life, our colleague, Michelle Prisby. So welcome, Adam and Michelle. Good to have y'all.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
So if it's your first time, we welcome you to Balance in Life. If it's not, we're always happy to have you back. We are a group that's pretty active in the chat box, and so feel free to engage with us in the chat. Bethany Eigel, Herman Macklin, and I typically are moderating that chat box while our experts are presenting to us. And just note, if you do post in the chat, if you do nothing, we're the only ones who can see what you post. If you want the other participants to see your welcomes, your greetings, your questions, your comments, then use those three dots to choose the drop-down menu and say all panelists and attendees. So we hope that you will engage in that way. And having said that, I am yielding the floor to our speakers. Welcome all.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Michelle Prisby, and I am going to get my slides started here. Okay, I am an extension associate in the Virginia Tech Department of Forest Resources and Environmental Conservation, and the director of the Virginia Master Naturalist Program, which I'll mention a little bit later on. And I'm really excited to be with all of you this morning. So first thing for the chat box, I want you to put in the chat box if you would like to engage. When is the last time you spent time outdoors in nature? A day ago, a week ago, a month ago? Tell us in the chat box. Now I'm going to make 4 main points about spending time outdoors in nature today. And the first one is that spending time outdoors is good for you, point blank. It's good for your physical and mental well-being. And this holds true across a wide diversity of people, children and adults, people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, people in urban and rural areas. Some examples: spending time outdoors in nature can lessen the symptoms of stress, lowering your blood pressure, decreasing stress hormones, enhancing immune system functioning, improving your sleep. It can have positive impacts for people with depression or attention deficit disorder. It can improve cognitive function. And maybe most importantly, nature experiences are linked to increased feelings of happiness and well-being, a greater sense of purpose in life, and an increased ability to manage the tasks of day-to-day life. Really what this Balancing Life series is all about. An especially timely quote: the United States Surgeon General on the radio this week said, quote, "Being outdoors seems to be one of the most effective things you can do to reduce your likelihood of getting COVID." Now, when we're talking about spending time outdoors for health, for mental and physical well-being, how much time are we talking about? Well, spending at least 120 minutes, so 2 hours a week in nature, is associated with good health and well-being. This is based on a well-publicized research study that was in Britain, and they found that it didn't matter how this 120-minute threshold was achieved. Could be many short periods of time outdoors during the week, or a few longer periods of time outside. Now, while this study has its limitations, I think it's a good goal, that 2 hours, if you're a goal-oriented person. Now, while much of the research that I've talked about are not controlled experiments, but rather studies that are looking at correlations, there is enough scientific agreement about the benefits of spending time in nature that there's now an increasing trend towards nature prescriptions. So doctors prescribing time outdoors for patients. And one organization to promote this, that's promoting this to check out, I've put the link on the screen here, is Park Prescription America. They have actually created a searchable park formulary that doctors can access through electronic health record systems, the same way they access drug formularies, so that they can find parks to prescribe for patients. That really kind of tells you how important this time in nature is for our health. Okay, next for the chat box. Thinking about that last time you spent time outdoors in nature, what is it you were doing? There is a wide diversity of ways you can spend time outdoors interacting with nature. A picnic with your friends, going fishing at a local pond, a walk, run, or bike ride, picking blackberries, bird watching, playing an outdoor game of hide and seek, just sitting outside in your lawn chair. Getting out in nature does not have to mean hiking. It does not have to mean being in the wilderness. And it certainly does not have to mean being alone. It just means being outside in any sort of green space. I was really fortunate to visit Holiday Lake State Park in Central Virginia on Memorial Day. And I was there with my spouse to hike the trails and go paddleboarding on the lake and to view wildlife, because those are some things that I'm into. But I saw other people there boating, fishing, swimming, picnicking, having family reunions, playing games, just sitting around and enjoying the views. And all of those activities are welcome and encouraged. So there's not just one correct way to use and enjoy that park. Some areas you go to might have rules about what sort of things you can do in that particular area. And that's to promote safety for people and for the natural resources. So, before you go somewhere, check out what the particular restrictions are for that place. Okay, in the chat box, that last time you spent time in nature outdoors, where did you go? There are really a lot of places you can go to enjoy nature. You can stay close to home. If you have a yard or a garden that you can use to get outdoors, great. Maybe it's a shared open space in your apartment complex or housing development. If you are in a highly urban area without a yard, chances are there's a public park, even a small one not too far away, or a street with trees planted along it. Start with what you've got. But there are also opportunities to enjoy nature further afield in the many, many public outdoor access areas that exist. If you want to seek out new places to go, there are some great resources that I want to tell you about. And one to mention is the Virginia Bird and Wildlife Trail. This is not a trail in the sense of a hiking trail. It's an organized network of outdoor sites that highlight the best places to see birds and wildlife in Virginia. But if you aren't particularly interested in watching wildlife, don't let that name throw you off. These are areas where you can get outdoors, and many of them have uses beyond just watching wildlife, although getting to see wildlife and birds is a nice benefit as well. There are literally hundreds of these sites across Virginia, organized into 65 different loops all over the state. You can find their locations online, and I've put the link here. This map on the left here just shows you the sites that are in the mountain region of Virginia, and you can see how many there are across all of those counties. And that's replicated in the Piedmont area of Virginia and on the coast as well. The other thing to look for is if you're out driving around, watch for these little brown signs along the roadway that say Virginia Bird and Wildlife Trail. And that's an indication that there's a place nearby that you can go to and get outdoors. North Carolina has something similar for any North Carolinians we have on the call today. I'm originally from North Carolina myself. North Carolina has the North Carolina Birding Trail. Again, it's not just for watching birds, it's a collection of sites to link people interested in spending time in nature with good sites across the state, more than 330 of them. So just to orient you on this map, here's Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte, and you can see there's these dots indicating the bird sites all around the state. Another tool that I really like is the Virginia Outdoors Plan Mapper. I couldn't quite figure out equivalent of this in North Carolina, though there might be one. This is a site you can go to view recreation spots and outdoor access opportunities on an interactive map. So you can see federal, state, local properties that have access for public recreation. You can find public access points for rivers and public fishing lakes. It's a really great tool for seeing what's in your area. And you can basically like click or unclick all these boxes to see the kinds of places you want to go. On this particular map that I pulled up, we're looking at Richmond and Henrico County in Virginia here. And all of these places that are green, so the bigger green spots, like here's Pocahontas State Park, for example, but as well as all these little green dots all over the Richmond area are all places that are parks and other natural areas where you can go to get outdoors. You can certainly experience and enjoy nature alone, and maybe that alone time outdoors is what you personally need. But put in the chat box, that last time you spent time in nature or outdoors, who was with you? The Nature of Americans study, which was a big study looking at Americans' connection to nature a few years back, that study has shown us that most people in this country have the most memorable experiences outdoors when it involves other people, often family. But interestingly, many adults still have the idea that you have to be in solitude in nature for it to be an authentic nature experience. And that's just not true. Your outdoor time can be deeply social if you want it to be, and being with others also might help you feel more comfortable in new outdoor spaces. So consider recruiting your friends and family to join you outdoors, or consider joining a group, especially again, if you're looking to increase your comfort level or meet new people and make it a social occasion. Just some possible groups, and there's many out there. Meetup.com can be a place to start. I looked up meetups for outdoor activities this weekend in Richmond, just to pick a place, and I found dozens just for this weekend in Richmond. A beginner day hike with Black women loving nature, a triangle area hiking club. I said Richmond, but I meant to say Raleigh. I looked this up for Raleigh, North Carolina, a fly fishing club, and more. There are demographic specific groups like Outdoor Afro, Latino Outdoors, women's groups, men's groups, groups for young professionals, groups for seniors, like every demographic that you might belong to. There are activity specific groups like bird clubs, native plant clubs, hiking groups. There are parks and nature centers that have public programming where you can go and do something with a group. And then I'll put in a plug here for my own cooperative extension program, the Virginia Master Naturalist Program. We are a statewide volunteer program focused on natural resources with 30 chapters around Virginia. So if you are looking to spend time outdoors while also doing volunteer projects to benefit Virginia's woods and wildlife and waters, check us out. So those are my main points, that getting outside is good for you. There is no right or wrong way to enjoy the outdoors. You can do it near or far from home, and you can join others and make it a social occasion. So now I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Adam, to talk a little bit more about safety, and that might be especially useful for those of you who are wanting to spend more time outdoors, but feeling a little bit nervous about it.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a privilege to co-present with you, and thank you, Crystal, for the invitation. Great segue, and I just listened to Michelle. Her enthusiasm for the outdoors helps me feel like, yeah, I need to get out there. One thing I've been trying to do is jog a few times each week, and this week it hasn't happened. So there's my confession. I'm going to make that happen today. When I was on this program about a year ago, this is a slide I started out with, and I'm going to end with it too. But it's just interesting to think about where we've been in the past year. And I hope that we're all finding some things that are better than before with regard to kind of dealing with stress, which is always going to be with us, whether we have a pandemic or not, right? But I'm going to talk a little bit about safety, and it's not going to be comprehensive, although I've tried to touch on the breadth of things, which means that it's not going to go very deep. And this is, let's see here. Thumbs up, Crystal, if this is looking okay. You see it? Okay. All right. So outside safety. Oh, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Ah! Sometimes that's what we think about with going outside. I'll actually have the word bear in one of the slides, but no lions and tigers. But we do have bugs and other animals and plants, the natural environment, the elements, and maybe if you're doing some work outside. So I'm going to touch on all of these things in the next few slides. So bugs, had to put a big fat engorged tick on there. Oh yeah. We thought about maybe reversing this so that you don't leave thinking about things crawling on you, but hopefully you don't have any ticks on you right now. And hopefully you never get one this engorged on you. Leave those for the dogs, right? But they are kind of disgusting. And unfortunately, they are increasingly carrying disease. So ticks are a big deal. We need to know what they are and be able to just have knowledge. And that's, I guess, one of the overriding factors is we tend to fear what we don't know, right? And so if you learn a little bit more about some of the things, say ticks are really scary to you, or snakes are really scary to you, or whatever, try learning about them, and knowledge can sometimes help mitigate or address or, have mind over matter with some situations. So I do have a slide coming up on ticks, but mosquitoes obviously can be uncomfortable. In some cases can carry some diseases as well. Biting flies, I hate horse flies. Oh my goodness. Swimming, I don't know how they find swimming pools, but they do. And then where I grew up in Northeast Ohio, leeches, not in Central Virginia where I live, but in some of the swampy lands, certainly there would be leeches too, which are kind of disgusting. And then how about this little critter down here in the bottom right-hand corner? You remember the big news about this last year? They called it the Trump caterpillar because sometimes has big orange hair. It's oh gosh, I just forgot what it is called. Pus caterpillar, I think it is. Yeah. And so some actually caterpillars can sting. This is being one of them. Wasp, obviously, my least favorite insect in the summertime is yellow jackets that come out of the ground and sting you when I'm trying to work in the woods or whatever. Bees, everyone thinks of bees first. Our European honeybees are actually not very aggressive, but certainly will sting if they're threatened. And then one that is increasing its spread in Virginia, and that is fire ants. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. But these are the three most common ticks in Virginia. The black-legged tick, which has been called the deer tick, but is more accurately called the black-legged tick. And this is the one that transmits Lyme disease. And then Lone Star tick and the American dog tick. There are several diseases that can be transmitted by one or more of these ticks. I mentioned the Lyme disease. Ehrlichiosis is one, and I've actually had that. Felt like a fever. It took the doctors a while to figure it out, and I'd sweat every night, and then I was fine during the day. So thankfully, that's not one like the Lyme disease that keeps giving. I was easily treated with that. And Rocky Mountain spotted fever is also common. There's also one that's come up more in recent years called alpha-gal. You'll sometimes hear it, or red meat allergy. And so that's a bummer. You can't eat red meat for a while, but I understand from friends that have had it, they do eventually kind of outgrow it. So anyway, there's a lot of information online about ticks, and I've been able to identify those. If you do get a tick attached to you, then you need to carefully pull it off, grab it by the head, and pull it out with tweezers. If you squeeze its body with tweezers or your fingers or whatever, then you may be injecting more of its contents, its bodily contents into you, and you get an infection and can cause some other problems. So lots of information out there. It's just something to be aware of. Check yourself, wear long sleeves, long pants, tuck your pants into your socks. And every recommendation you'll see says to wear DEET spray. Now there are other sprays out there, and they may or may not work well for you or for situations, but DEET does work. A lot of times people don't want to use DEET because of the chemical, but might be better than the alternative. I mentioned the fire ant, and this is just kind of a little PSA for all you listening, because it is one that's increasing. It's in southeastern Virginia, but it's increasing, and there's quarantine on it. So if you see mounds like this, that's in southeastern Virginia or outside of southeast Virginia, let someone know, because we are trying to track that. These are just little ants, and they do pack a wallop. Look at that picture on the lower right. That's on a hot dog. Those things are eating that hot dog. That's kind of disgusting, isn't it? It takes away a little of the appeal for a summer cookout. All right. All right, trigger warning. Here in a little bit, there's going to be a picture of a steak or two or three. So if you can't stand that, like my wife, then don't look, okay? But we're going to talk a little bit about snakes. There are only 3 poisonous snakes in Virginia. And I'll mention those briefly. Bears, there have been increased incidents and interactions with bears. As we expand our growth into areas where bears are living, there's going to be a human-wildlife interactions or conflict, if you will. So understanding bear habitat, don't leave trash out, don't leave dog food out. These are simple sort of things that can reduce those interactions. And actually, a conflict with bears and humans is very rare in terms of an attack. Very, very rare. Sometimes dogs, and then there's rabid animals. And I actually learned something a few years ago when I had a possum near the house that was acting weird in the middle of the day. And I thought, oh, rabies. Well, possums, along with rodents and rabbits, are very rarely carriers of rabies. The most common animals are bats, skunks, foxes, coons, and coyotes. And the chances of those biting you are pretty slim. They could bite a pet, and then that pet, being close to you could be a risk. So also something to just be a little bit mindful of. And I put deer down there because they're probably the most dangerous animal to us. Maybe not while we're outside hiking or something like that, but when we're driving, right? The accidents they cause. So we think about all these other animals when we're outside, but some reality is useful to keep in mind. Okay, here comes the snake picture. Close your eyes if you want to. All right. These 2 snakes, if you think you know what these are, go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm going to just watch a little bit to see what comes up. Where did my chat go? It's hiding from me. Okay, I guess I'm not going to watch. All right. These are actually, the top one is a black rat snake and the bottom one is a black racer. These are juvenile forms. The most commonly feared animal, because they're one of the more common snakes, and they look at first glance like something poisonous, come on, the most copperhead. Thank you, Herman. Copperhead. Yeah, especially that top one. But there is a different pattern there. And so anyway, if you see something, it may or may not be a poisonous snake. Chances are it's not a poisonous snake. By the way, snakes don't want to see you any more than you want to see them. All right. All right. So here's some of the next. So these are the 3 poisonous snakes. Copperhead. Thank you, Herman. Very widespread throughout Virginia. This is the cottonmouth, the water snake, and it's only in southeastern Virginia, which means if you see a snake in the waters in most of Virginia, it's not a cottonmouth. It's probably a brown water snake. And then we've got the timber rattler, which is in more of the mountainous area. All right. And thankfully, they sometimes will give you a little warning with their rattle. All right, let's move on to plants. Do you remember a couple years ago, the giant hogweed scare? So I'm bringing up some of these media scares because sometimes the media doesn't help us with this stuff. It's healthy and good to be outside, but then we get these things that just blow up. And that pus caterpillar was one that blew up, and giant hogweed blew up. Yes, there is some giant hogweed in Virginia. In fact, one of the populations, people have been eating it for several years. Okay, they didn't even know, because if you cook it and handle it right, it can be okay. But so it's not, you don't walk by this and fall over dead or get blisters like you might think with some of the media. However, there are poisonous plants, and the most common one by far is poison ivy. You'll hear people talk about poison oak. Yes, there's a little bit of poison oak in southeastern Virginia, but by and large, most of the state has poison ivy, and difference between poison oak and poison ivy is inconsequential. It's the same kind of oil that causes an itch. Probably the biggest, most threatening aspect of this is if people are burning it. and inhaling the smoke. That can really cause very serious health challenges. It is a native plant, by the way, has great value for wildlife, and it even looks neat in the fall. This picture in the lower right-hand corner is the brilliant red color that the leaves turn, and it has red berries in the fall. So it's not a bad plant. It's just not a good plant to roll around. And then the heat or the cold. We love to complain about temperature, don't we? It's too hot. Well, I always say, well, you know what? It's so great that we don't have to complain about the cold this time of year. Or in the middle of winter, isn't it so nice we don't have to complain about how hot it is? So we can dress accordingly. We can be out early in the morning or late in the evening during the hot summers. So the biggest thing is to prepare for that. And in the summer, like now, certainly keeping hydrated is very important. Wearing a hat to shade yourself a little bit, especially folks like me without much natural shade up there. All right, and if you're working outside, working outside, the most common, you can have an accident. An accident is any unplanned event, right? So whatever you're doing, whether you're cutting up trees, mowing the lawn, building a retaining wall, whatever, anything can happen that's unplanned, and that would be an accident. And an accident is most likely to happen when you're tired, hungry, thirsty, frustrated. Okay, so these are sort of things that kind of fit in with what we're talking about overall with this series. And so if you're tired, take a break. It'll wait, right? And there's slip, trips, and falls when you're working with equipment are more common, especially when you're tired. And then if you are dealing with sharp tools, and the chainsaw probably being the most dangerous tool that folks use outside without proper training, then use proper protective equipment. Make sure that it's as sharp as it can be. Sharp tools are safer than dull tools. Why? Because dull tools make you work harder. You get tired. So keeping your equipment in good working order and wearing proper protective equipment is important. So I'll wrap up just with kind of trying to bring this full circle with encouraging us all, myself included, to get outside and whether that's with someone or by yourself, and bringing back some of that youthful curiosity. This book, Last Child in the Woods, highly recommended if you're interested in this topic, and also just to engage imagination. And that's the book in the lower right-hand corner, My Side of the Mountain. It's a book that I read when I was a kid, and it's about this kid who left home and lived in a hollow tree, and it so captured my imagination that I still remember it. And here I am as a younger extension agent inside a hollow tree that we found to measure for the Big Tree program. But last point here is go play with the stick. If you don't know anything else to do when you're outside, pick up a stick, break it, toss it, carve it, whatever. It's as simple as that. Get your hands on some nature. All right. So it's been great to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Adam and Michelle. So yes, I love the stick. When Adam was on before, he talked about the stick, like play with the stick, grab a stick, explore a stick. And it was when we were still home. I mean, we've been home now, right? But things were really shut down the last time Adam was on, and my younger daughter had gotten really interested in just exploring bugs, right? So picking up like logs and branches and just kind of seeing what was there and exploring these. So that same day after we finished the session, Adam, we went outside and she started exploring bark because she started talking about looking at the different bark on the trees and playing with sticks. So we took that and we did that last time.
Excellent.
All right. So those are some, you did put some creepies up there, Adam. But we hope that by starting with, the benefits and the joys of being outdoors, noting the cautions, the things we can mitigate. I do appreciate you framing it and saying sometimes we fear the things we don't know. And when there are some things that are dangerous, right? And then we couple them with the things we don't know, then it can really be elevated and keep us from doing some things that are really good for us and really enjoyable for us. So I appreciate you lifting those up. I'm going to go to Herman and Bethany and ask them for if they have questions, if they've seen questions or something they want to lift up from this session. So Herman, I'll come to you first.
Well, of course, I had a landscaping question. If I've been cleaning up around the yard and you have some of the poison ivy vines are as big as my wrist. And I was worried that some of that might have got mixed in with the brush that they're going to burn. Would that be a problem?
Just don't breathe the smoke. It'll disperse quickly enough, you know. I mean, don't roast your hot dogs over that fire, that kind of thing. Yeah, you'll be fine. Just kind of stay out of the smoke, or you know, might not be a bad idea to wear a mask. Hey, that's still fashionable, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's right.
So yeah, good question. You know, people have different sensitivities to poison ivy as well. For example, cashews, by the way, are in the same family as poison ivy, and my mom can't eat cashews. So
Wow.
she's real sensitive. Others can handle the stuff. In fact, I know some people who eat it to build up their own immunity. I've not tried that. and I didn't spend much time on eating of plants. I love to forage, but there's only a few things that I do that with that I know exactly what they are. So there has been an uptick over the past year of poisoning by foraging, with people spending time outside, which is great. Not going to restaurants, wanting to try different things. I don't know what the psychology is with it, but one of the resources I did want to share, I meant to hold this up, is the Socrates project. This is a book that actually Michelle is involved in. I was too in the first edition. She was a peer reviewer on this one. Master Naturalist put together. It's Poisonous Plants in Virginia. Very good resource. And I also just wanted to show you my pet tick.
You could have saved the tick.
You could have saved the tick. I
we
know.
did not need to see a tick that size.
He's
And he didn't
so
even
soft.
give us a warning. He gave us warnings for the snakes, but he didn't give us a warning for the giant
Plush.
tick.
He's a plush tick, not engorged, plushed.
I don't know if this is, I don't know how true or not true, if this is just completely coincidental, but my youngest two children, each time that I was pregnant, once with each child, I found a tick on me and I couldn't even figure out when or where it came from. I hadn't done any really woodsy walking, just sort of neighborhood walking and outdoor walking. So I don't know if that's a thing or not a thing, but both pregnancies I found ticks on me. Weird, right? And Bethany, have you seen something in the chat or something sparked for you? I saw Herman joking with you about being outdoors.
Yeah, I am an outdoor person for sure. But you know what sparked, and I don't see any other questions or I'll call them out, but what sparked was, I love Michelle just saying it, you don't have to qualify how you're outdoors to make it meaningful. So I'm in a really urban area, and I will just say, if you don't normally enjoy being outside, take baby steps. And so even sitting on my porch and reading my book, or sitting on the porch and watching a show, if that's what you're doing, but something about being outside while you're doing that activity. But even doing container gardening and things like that, if you're in a more urban area, or surrounding yourself with some different plants that are on your porch, just to get a little bit immersed into nature, and taking care of something that is nature is really great. And if you're taking baby steps, just start with a succulent. You can't go wrong. I haven't killed any yet. So yeah, but thank you both, Adam and Michelle. Great stuff.
It is. It's so good. And I tell you, I don't know how or when this came about, but I think I started to sometimes when I just need a breather to walk away from the screen. My office is still closed, so I'm working out of home. And so every so often, it probably comes up like every 2 weeks or so in my brain, I just need to get outside, and I walk outside. And I don't know why I do this, but I take about 10 minutes and I just start pulling weeds out of the garden. I just start weeding. And I've never done that before. It's never been a thing I enjoy doing, but it feels so cathartic just to pull up some weeds, just to go do the weeding. And I do that, and I do it for about 10 minutes or maybe 15 or so. And then I usually have to jump back in and get ready for a next meeting. But every so often I just go outside and just start pulling weeds. I don't have enough time to really go take a walk or do anything else, but I weed. That's my new thing this year. But there is something to being outdoors. And I was leaning in where Bethany went, and that is the baby steps, right? Taking small steps. I mean, some people, it's a natural proclivity to wanting to be outside, enjoying being outside. and doing that, for longer periods of time, outdoor, but there's others that I put in the description, some who don't consider ourselves outdoorsy types, right? That bug is gonna bug me too much, right? Or I'm too fearful or whatever it is, but the baby steps to being outside, the sitting outside, listening to the birds, looking outside. I even found some, I appreciate that, Adam. I even enjoy some of the posts that Adam and Michelle and colleagues post sometimes. I was joking because I listened to a post recently about the green salamander, and I just needed my brain to engage in something different. So even though I was watching it online, it was engaging my brain in a different way. So I listened to it while I ate my lunch, and it was just a calming, just kind of listening to something different, doing something different. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you, Adam and Michelle. All of the resources were posted in the chat, but as Bethany mentioned, we will send them out to everyone with the recording and with the slide decks, and also the Socrates Project. Adam, if there's a link to that, we'll share that out as well. I want to quickly just remind people who've been on, or if you haven't seen this before, we do have an upcoming session that we've lifted up a couple of times in this Balance in Life space, and that is a gatekeeper suicide prevention training. So probably many of you are registered for this already, or you've seen it. It's in the email that came announcing this session. So that will be coming up on June 22nd. So, we'll include that when we send out the recording link for this, as well as the slide deck. But I did want to tell you that we in Virginia, with Virginia Cooperative Extension, and hopefully many of you do too, we have June 18th as a holiday. It is Juneteenth, and as the Commonwealth takes that day off as a holiday, we will be taking the day off as a holiday too, and therefore we will not have a Balance in Life session next week. So we hope that you take that time to do something as well, to get outside, or to do something that is useful, beneficial. When we send out the recording link, we'll lift up a couple of different maybe presentations to suggest if you want to catch one that you hadn't seen before. But then we'll be right back the next week. So having said that, we want to say thank you for being here, for being with us this week. And you can find any of the recordings that we have posted on the links here. And I hope that you will take the opportunity this weekend to do something outdoors, sitting outdoors, walking outdoors, doing something outdoors, and doing so with the safety measures that Adam talked with us about. So thanks everyone for being here. I know, watch the ticks. We got it. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.